Good morning, everybody. My name is TC. I want to welcome all of you this morning to the Houston Oasis, a community grounded in reason, celebrating the human experience. I want to make sure you know that your cell phones, if you have them on you, I would love it if they were on vibrate or silent, either way. Sometimes cell phone towers pinging your cell phone can bleed through the sound system and make the sound system go, that's your cell phone, okay? Fire exits are on both ends of the room back there, and if this place is on fire, you can follow my flaming butt through the window. I want to introduce our artist this morning. Come on up. He's a good friend of mine from the Houston songwriting community. He is well known in taverns, restaurants, pubs, and homes throughout the Gulf Coast area.
And blood banks.
And blood banks. He's a songwriter, okay? You take any gig you can get, you know. In any case, I first met him when I was a very green guitar player here in Houston, and I used to see him play at clubs, and he always did a fantastic job. I think he has a wonderful point of view, a really nice emotive voice. He's a good solid picker. And I've watched him evolve over the years into a wonderful artist. Please put your hands together for Mr. Thaddeus Breneman.
Good morning. Remember the time you just laid on your back, making love to your cold 45, and now Jesus, more money, Prozac, put the sparkle back into your eyes. You said every sunset is just a stillborn climax, and dawn's just the cause of it all. And now Jesus, more money, Prozac, put your smile through the line on this call. You said you found someone who's a lot like me. Well, I hope when you're ready I'll sing at your wedding. God bless you, please RSVP. You make me listless and wistful, like a blue Monday preacher, a bachelor on Sunday, new shoes at Easter, playing blackjack with Jesus on Prozac, believing it's payback for leaving before. You said you found someone who's a lot like me. Well, you asked for my blessing, I suppose you can guess I'll be wishing for how things could be. And now that every sunset is still a stillborn climax, and dawn's just the cause of it all. And not Jesus, more money, Prozac, can help me make sense of it all. Say you found someone who's a lot like me. I hope when you're ready I'll sing at your wedding. God bless you, please RSVP. Like I can find someone who's a lot like you. Well, the chances are slithered, so I guess I'll pretend being happy. God bless you too. Say your prayers, take your pills, I love you. John Paul put our heads together, but we couldn't think of nothing to say. Started thinking early in the evening last night and carried on into the day. And just about noon it started making sense, and then it wouldn't go away. See, I was always living in the future tense, and he was only living today. Do you think you can make it? Do you think you can take it? Do you think it's for the rusty goddamn? If I'm still thinking when the curtain falls, I'll be thinking therefore I am. Then Jenny come down, concerned about Carl, said he's working much too hard. God bless the hands of the working man, but I think he's gone a little too far. He said he's gonna struggle till the day he dies, and history marks him a star. He's a faraway boy with a poet's eyes, she's a lady with a shepherd's heart. Do you think you can take it? Do you think you can make it? Do you think we're to the rusty goddamn? If I'm still thinking when the curtain falls, I'll be thinking therefore I am. And then me and the Mahari, she went downtown just to try to lose my blues. I said, what do you think about the hookers on the corner? He said he couldn't wear those shoes. He said everybody gets exactly what they ask for, sometimes what they deserve. Well, I seen he had a racket and a lot of balls, and it was my turn to serve. Do you think you can take it? Do you think you can make it? Do you think it's worth the rusty goddamn? If I'm still thinking when the curtain falls, I'll be thinking therefore I am. John Paul had a hell of a fight, like you find him on the best of friends. He was trying to tell me that you get one life. I said I'm coming back again. But we both agreed it's a very short fall from the belly of your mama to the grave. You didn't ask to come, but you're here, my son, so you might as well try to be brave. Do you think you can take it? Do you think you can make it? Do you think it's worth the rusty goddamn? If I'm still thinking when the curtain falls, I'll be thinking therefore I am. Yes, if I'm still thinking when the curtain falls, I'll be thinking therefore I am.
I'm just, sometimes amazed and overwhelmed at all the talent we have right here in our backyard with people like Thaddeus and with folks we get to see every week. It's just, I'm astonished. I wish I had that much talent. Welcome, and this is the table thing is not a permanent change. It's just the conference center said, hey, can we leave tables up this week? So I said, sure. So, but if you like them, we can have them. I don't know. Let me know what you think. We at this point we do. That does seem so far away today. At this point in our proceedings, we do something called a community moment, where someone from our community gets up and shares, a thought, reflection, something they want to share with y'all. Sometimes it's part of their life story, observations, and this week we're going to welcome Jared Lackey up, who we haven't seen in a while because he has been offshore for the entire month of January, and so he's back home again. We're so glad to welcome him back to Oasis. So let's bring Jared up to the podium this time.
Thanks, Mike, and good morning, everybody. A few months ago, here, Mike mentioned that one of the biggest, one of the most common fears is public speaking. I can attest to that right now. I've been nervous all morning. Last night I was trying to figure out what I was going to say, all the way till I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to say. So I just thought I'd introduce myself and maybe hit a few highlights of my own personal history and family history, and then I have a poem to share with you guys. So I'm Jared, and that's Jared too. And I'm Jared Lackey. I'm think that's Jared Smith, right? Okay. So anyway, I'm 31. I grew up in Brazoria, Texas, which is roughly an hour's drive south of here. Not surprisingly, encountered church and Christianity at an early age. When they asked who wants to meet Jesus at Vacation Bible School, I raised my hand, not knowing what it was, but just thought it'd be fun to raise my hand. And so got sort of saved for the first time there. And then as a teenager, parents brought us, me and my brother and sister, to a Assembly of God church, where eventually I learned how to speak in tongues, and did that a little bit, and had my own little fair share of trying to win peers to Jesus, and not sure if I ever succeeded at that, but anyway. Then got about 21 years old, moved out, got married, got away from home, moved around a little bit, got away from the church, did a little church hopping, so it gave me, and I started working offshore, so all this kind of gave me a little room to think, I guess, a little separation from the church community I'd grown up in. And long story short, ended up an atheist. And so been feeling kind of like a wanderer sort of since then. So we're glad to be here and kind of involved in something like a community again. It's kind of a good feeling. So I guess I'll go ahead and share that poem with you guys now. Now, when I read this, I have to have my eyes open because I have to read the words. But I thought you guys might enjoy closing your eyes. It might kind of enhance the experience if you can kind of imagine, create your own imagery as I read the words. It's up to you. Just a suggestion. Okay. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. That's it. Thanks.
Another song. You know, I don't normally introduce my songs. I figure if it can't stand on its own merit, there's no reason to explain it. That being said, I have an introduction for this one. I learned a real valuable lesson when I got married. I'm divorced now, but almost 20 years ago, when I did get married, I learned the big difference between living together and being married, and that's when you go to the store. You see, when you're living together, you say, honey, I'm going to the store, you need anything? And she'll go, yeah, I need this, this, and this. Or she said, no, I don't need anything. And the minute you get married, you get that ring on your finger and that paper sign, you say, honey, I'm going to the store, and all of a sudden this list appears. and it looks like the Magna Carta. And so I get this list. I'm going to Target, and one of the things on the list was garbage bags. And so I go to the garbage bag section, and I was really astounded at the variety of garbage bags you could get. You know, 15-gallon, 30-gallon yard leaf bags, you know, twist ties, Ziploc, you know. But the one I bought, it was the cheapest, but that's not why I bought it. The reason I bought it is because it advertised 6 free trash bags. Nothing uniform to that, not 5, not 10, 6. I thought, what an arbitrary number. And then I got to thinking on the way home, he said, this is marketing genius. I mean, it really is, because I think, and if you look and see, all our problems in the world start with ourselves. And our biggest problems, we can tell everybody else how to clean their house, and we're personal hoarders, and I think every one of us carries about 6 bags full of garbage they ought to just let the hell go, but they got nowhere to put it. Get rid of all that crap you've been packing around. Don't go looking for it in the lost and found. It's better off gone, and our time is fading fast. Don't listen to the modern day prophets of doom. Don't tell your brother that you have no room. You got plenty of space if you only take out your trash. And I listen to the talking heads tell their tales, and I feel like Jonah just banging on the ribs of the whale. Our fate appears sealed, and the me's just having a blast. Then you hear all those stories about the good old days, when the only game they played was like old Simon says. Well, Simon says, get off your ass and take out your trash. Get rid of all that crap you've been packing around, and don't go looking for it in the lost and found. Well, it's better off gone, and our time is fading fast. Don't listen to those modern day prophets of doom, and don't tell your brother that you have no room. You got plenty of space if you only take out your trash. I scream, you scream, what the hell we screaming for? OJ's not just for breakfast anymore. Meanwhile, the tabloid titans are gearing up for a clash. You can get some homely, lonely housewife sit there and tell about her affair with some lesbian biker named Mel. Hey Jerry, hey Maury, hey Ricky, take out your trash. Get rid of all that crap you've been packing around. Don't go looking for it in the lost and found. It's better off gone, and our time is fading fast. Wow, I wrote the song, I can't remember the words. There's gathering space if you only take out your trash.
I think you need to take out your trash there.
You got King Barry at the helm and Rush Windbag on the air, and our sense of checks and balance don't seem quite fair. Like when we turn around and give those foreign states all hard-earned cash. Still, we're stepping over children who are sleeping on our streets. Got no coat for the winter, no shoes for their feet. It's time to wake up, smell the coffee, take out your trash. Get rid of all that crap you've been packing around. Don't go looking for it in the lost and found. It's better off gone, and our time is fading fast. Don't listen to those modern day prophets of doom. And don't tell your brother that you have no room. You got plenty of space if you only. You got plenty of space if you only. You got plenty of space if you only take out. Just take it out.
Save one for later.
Okay. Oh yeah, you'll send us out. Yeah. So over the years I've done about a couple hundred weddings I've officiated at. And as you can imagine, you get a lot of good stories out of weddings. Just funny stuff happens, you know. I remember actually one of the very first weddings I did, it turned out, unbeknownst to me, to be a country and western themed wedding, complete with hay bales, a wagon wheel, and fake saguaro cactus up front, and yeah, you see all kinds of stuff. Well, someone actually asked me, was anyone ever stood up at the altar? And one time I was doing a wedding, and the bride had indicated that she would be getting dressed at home. Her mother would be helping her get dressed, which, yeah, okay. And a lot of times the bridal party gets there early to get dressed and get the pictures done ahead of time, but they said they were going to get dressed at home and come to the wedding, you know, when they were ready. So, getting close to the start time of the wedding, it was 4 o'clock. It was like 10 till 4, no sign of the bride yet. And the groom's starting to pace around, so we called back over to the house. Oh, she told me we had some problems with the dress, and there's some problems with the dress, and so it gets to be 4 o'clock, the start time for the wedding. The place is full with wedding guests, and no sign of the bride still. It gets to be about 4:10-ish, I went and tell the organist, just play some show tunes or something to keep people, you know. And so yeah, she was like vamping on the organ, and then literally, and it was about 4:25, and I was getting ready to walk into the room to tell the guests, it looks like this isn't going to happen today, when the breathless bride came running in with her mother. And we went on. It was, you know, awkward to say the least, you know. So that's as close as I ever came to, you know, being at some place where someone got stood up. But apparently people do get stood up with some frequency, enough so that Harvard psychologist Dan Gilbert, among others, has studied the phenomenon of being stood up at a wedding. And as you would imagine, you know, they're looking at trauma and resilience and stuff like that. And as you would imagine, the person being stood up at the time, it's like one of the most painful, mortifying experiences they've ever been through. I mean, it's just horrible. It's a nightmare. But they've also found out that a year after the event, most people, overwhelming majority of people who have been stood up, realize it was one of the best things that could have ever happened to them. And it saved them from getting into a bad marriage. So something extremely painful at the time, but a year later, it's like, it wasn't so bad. In fact, it was a very, very good thing. In all the years I've been working with people, one topic has fascinated me more than any other topic, and it's the topic of resilience. How do people go through what they go through and bounce back? You know, time and time again I've seen it. People go through ridiculously hard things, and they don't crumble, and they recover, and they heal, and they move on, and they even thrive. How does it happen? Conversely, I've seen folks that go through like relatively minor, I don't know, looks like a speed bump in life, and yet they'll like kind of crumble in the face of it and just kind of go into a tailspin. So how do people develop the capacity for resilience? There's a lot of research, a lot of work on this topic. It's a hot topic right now. Where do people get the emotional wherewithal to come through life with flying colors? I think I've spent a little time thinking about that together today. We'll have the chance to kind of discuss amongst ourselves. about it too. Did you see the thing in the news this week or last week about the guy, the wounded soldier from Iraq who had like missing all his arms and his legs, and apparently Johns Hopkins was able to transport he was able to get new arms, and I just caught a glimpse of the story, but they're doing the press interview thing with the guy with his new limbs, and what amazed me about this man was like how normal he appeared. He has no limbs. And he's like smiling and upbeat and articulate. And I just think, man, could I do that? I mean, I'd like to think I could, but I found it very inspiring. So here, I just want to share with you some random thoughts I've had over the years on human resiliency. Some of it comes from research, some of it is anecdotal evidence from my experience. And then you're going to get to share yours in a little bit. Because I have dealt with folks who've gone through just about every kind of trauma. In the late 1960s, a guy in New Orleans wrote a book, and he was a young, talented writer. I mean, he hadn't written anything, this was his first book. And he submitted this book for publication, and got rejected, and got rejected, and got rejected. And so in 1969, at the age of 31, he committed suicide. His mother persisted after his death. And she took the manuscript around to publisher after publisher, and it got rejected, and it got rejected. Bear in mind, this is starting somewhere around 1969, 1970. Finally, she starts hounding this great Southern writer, Walker Percy, who at the time was teaching at Loyola University. And I guess people will bring him manuscripts all the time. And he turned her down, said, I don't have time to read it, I don't want to read it. And finally, she just persisted. And finally, he said, okay, I'll read it. And he said, I picked it up hoping it would be bad. Because I didn't really want to spend it, I wanted to be able to have it be so bad that after the first 2 paragraphs, I could put it down and say this, But not only was it not bad, it was pretty good. And he kept reading, and it got better. And then he said it was unbelievably good. And Walker Percy got it published through LSU Press in 1980, and 1981, the author of the book was awarded posthumously the Pulitzer Prize. A bunch of you guys know the name of the book. It is A Confederacy of Dunces, which has gone on to become a modern classic. It is a hilarious book. It is a scream. A Confederacy of, I'll write it up here later. Highly recommend it. And now it's required reading, a lot of literature courses. Now contrast that story with the story of John Grisham, who,
I'll write it.
yeah, but then people are gonna watch you writing, and because you're prettier than I am, and they're not gonna.
I don't know, you're pretty handsome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll keep talking, but pay no attention to that woman behind the curtain. Okay, so, contrast that story with John Grisham, who he was an attorney in Mississippi, and also he was in the state legislature as a representative, making $8,000 a year, interestingly, in the Mississippi State House. And he wrote his first book called A Time to Kill, which was rejected by it was 1989, I guess, rejected by 28 publishers. 28 times rejected. And finally he got it published by a no-name publishing firm. And they only agreed to to print 5,000 copies. And it was a miserable failure. But as soon as he finished A Time to Kill, he started working on his next novel, The Firm, which in 1990 became the New York Times best-selling book of the year. And now Grisham has gone on to sell over 250 million books. And so Woody Allen once said that 90% of life is just showing up. And it's true. And that is, I think, one lesson that resilient people know is persistence. Like the author's name was the author of Confederacy of Dunces is John Kennedy Toole. Last week we talked about the web of causality, all the complex interactions of genes and environment and culture and history that impact any given moment or event in our life. And the web of causality is so complex it kind of defies explanation. I mean, it's there, it could theoretically be explained, but the complexity of the web of causality, I think, gives us a great reason to wake up in the morning. You know why? you never know what's going to happen. A lot of things are possible that you don't think are possible, and the web of causality adds an element of surprise to life. In John Kennedy Toole's case, if he had just stuck around a little bit, if he had just stuck around, I mean, the thing that breaks my heart, it's such a sad story, not only for him personally and the pain he must have felt, but it's like someone who wrote that good must have had other good tricks up his sleeve. You know, humanity was diminished by his suicide because he had more that he could have brought to the table if he had just hung in there. You know, it could have been a while, but he would have eventually been a famous author. History is filled with examples of people who confronted numerous failures and they just hung in there. I mean, even on the eve of World War II, Winston Churchill was considered a political has-been, washed up. I mean, he was still known as the author of the greatest naval debacle of World War I when he was First Lord of the Admiralty, the Dardanelles. And yet he bounced back. I mean, he's another person who didn't quit. People who study talent and creativity have said that often great achievement is a matter of sheer output. It's not, sometimes we overplay the role of talent, innate talent. Sometimes it's just a matter of doing stuff, writing enough stories, painting enough pictures, taking enough photos, concocting enough recipes. Eventually something's gonna stick. You know, I think I mentioned this before, but you know, Babe Ruth, home run king for a long time. Also the strikeout king. He got up there and swung a lot. If you swing enough, it's going to connect sometime. So it'd be interesting to see how many walks. He probably didn't get walked very much because he just swung at everything. Picasso painted something like more than 10,000 paintings. Have you seen some of those stuff and wondered, like, what's the big deal? Not everything he did was great. But he did 10,000, you do 10,000 paintings, even if anybody here did 10,000 paintings, I bet you could generate a masterpiece somewhere among those 10,000 paintings. Just keep doing it. Debatable? No, I will put money on it. Get going now. That's why we have the tables today. Pick your masterpiece. Right? That brings up something. I don't have time to get into the 10,000 thing. Oh gosh, where's the time going? Okay. Something else I've noticed about resilient people is they tend to have this ability to keep life in perspective. They're not overly elated by life's victories, and they're not overly bummed out by life's tragedies. It's like there's kind of an even-keeled nature thing going on for them. In Hinduism, they have this concept of, the word is Maya, M-A-Y-A, which roughly translates as illusion. And I think there's a helpful, this isn't a metaphysical thing, it's just an approach to life that says you're kind of playing this role, or you play a lot of different roles in life. Like life is like a stage, like Shakespeare said. And you have this role to play. And sometimes you're playing a tragic role, and sometimes you're playing a comic role, and sometimes you're playing a romantic role. But you can look back when those things are happening, like something really horrible happens to you. You don't have to say that, well, this is the thing that utterly defines you, because someday you're going to be playing another role in the play. Right now you're playing a tragic role, and you just kind of sit back and say, oh, that's interesting. But it doesn't have to be like the defining characteristic of your entire existence, because there's always another role coming along in the play. And I like that. It's like, it gives you a sense of kind of distance and perspective. There's this guy in my morning coffee clutch at Starbucks who's kind of a blowhard, kind of opinionated. I honestly don't know why I sit and talk with him, but he's okay. I'm just trying to be really accepting of my fellow human, and I'm working hard on that. But anyway, he has this deal that when he gets up and leaves the table, and if somebody, when you're saying bye, someone says, well, have a good day. I'm not going to tell you his name, because this is on the internet, but have a good day. And he always says, I always do. That's his standard response. Not, oh, thanks, you too. He always says, I always do. So one day I asked him, why do you always say, I always do? Because I find it very annoying. I didn't say that. I did say, why do you say that? I was interested. And he said, because he said, the way I look at it, you never have an entirely bad day. You can have like a bad 15 minutes, You can have a bad hour or two, maybe even a bad morning or bad evening, but not a bad entire day. And actually, that's not a terrible perspective to have. Because I mean, the only time really that you have an entirely bad day is like when you have the stomach flu. And you feel like you want to die all day long. I mean, when you have like some kind of illness and you want to feel like you want to die all day long, that would qualify as a bad entire day. But aside from that, getting into a fender bender in the morning, as inconvenient and horrible and pain, as it is, doesn't have to define the entire 24-hour cycle. And so think about it. If you had adequate food, roof over your head, clean water, you didn't have to walk like 5 miles with a jar in your head to get, drinking water for your family, which I saw a picture of in the New York Times just the other day. If you had these things, you have by definition had a pretty darn good day, really, compared to much of humanity. I had this apartment mate in college. It was like a bunch of us living in an apartment, and I didn't have to room with this guy, thank goodness, but I was around him enough to, when the alarm went off every morning, he would reach over, slap the alarm, and say, "Oh God, oh crap." Now, he didn't say crap, but we're a PG audience here, and so, oh shoot. Every morning of his life, that's how he woke up. Oh God. And that was like his attitude. The guy was a major bummer to be around. I mean, you start like thinking that way, it's gonna, a couple of real things. Almost without exception, the least resilient people, most pessimistic people I've known have been somewhat isolated and cut off from others. Since we have evolved as a tribal species, there is something special and necessary about the power of community. Being around others does stuff to our brains. There is verifiable neurological impact on even doing what we're doing this morning. That's why just showing up here, you're showing up, brings energy to the room, in addition to the 100 watts of heat that you generate in your body. It's significant in terms of the release of neurotransmitters such as oxytocin and dopamine and other stuff I'm not aware of, but we experience it as energy and excitement of being around other people. It's a trick that our brain plays, but it's a real deal. Think about the whole phenomenon of going to concerts. I mean, you could just sit in the comfort of your own home and listen to the music on your state-of-the-art high-fidelity system. And the quality of the music would probably be better than what you're going to hear at the concert, especially an outside concert. Unless you happen to be attending a house concert at the home of Fred Thompson that has amazing sound, which is true. But instead of doing that, we leave hours before the show, we get stuck in the traffic jam in the parking structure at Toyota Center, or we have to walk a mile from the Woodlands Mall over to the Pavilion, and you wait in line for security for the bag check, and you're constantly bumping up to other hot and sweaty human beings, and you sip on exorbitantly expensive beer, sitting through some warm-up band you never wanted to hear, just for the chance of hearing your favorite band live. And we call that fun. But there is something different about the experience, isn't there? This is why we do it. There is discernible energy. When you're singing along with thousands of other people to your favorite band and your favorite songs, something happens to your brain. To me, it's just another reminder of our tribal past and how nature really did not design us to do this thing alone. Let me think of something. In a town I used to live in South Texas, there was like one semi-decent edible restaurant to eat at in the town. And it was called K2, and it wasn't named after the peak in the Himalayas. It was like some, I don't know what it was about. It was a steakhouse, and you walked in, and I vividly remember in the entrance to the steakhouse, they had this, picture, this painting, oil painting of John Wayne with the cowboy hat. And it was like a shrine to John Wayne, and there were like flowers next to it, and I don't know, they probably put out food to eat like they do for the Buddhist gods. Anyway, it was like the shrine to John Wayne. And the caption on this large oil painting of John Wayne that hit you when you walked in was, John Wayne, American. That's all it said. John Wayne, American. American. And what struck me is that, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the Duke's movies and all that, but the image, this kind of mythos of the rugged, lone, self-sufficient individual, and that's not what we're designed. Nature didn't design us to be that. We're a eusocial species. When free thinkers ask me what we're doing at Houston Oasis, I describe our weekly meetings to build community, inspiration, increasingly to make the world a better place. We've got stuff up here to do this week. And sometimes the response I get, wasn't that a lot like church? Like yeah. Well, first of all, our music is way better. Okay, so it's different, But, if we were to stop doing everything that religious people do, that means we couldn't have conventions, and we couldn't have guest speakers, and we couldn't have social events. I mean, if you wanted to completely define yourself as anti-something and not do anything these people do, that makes no sense. Being a free thinker doesn't mean we stop being a human being, rather it means embracing humanity actually more fully than ever before. Humanity as it is, human nature as science tells us it is. I think that's what we're doing. One more story, and then we got to wrap it up, and I'll let you guys talk a little bit. Finally, resilient people have imagination. A few weeks ago, I told you about Viktor Frankl, the great Austrian psychiatrist who went on the right man's search for meaning, one of the best books ever written, and how he had been thrown into the Nazi concentration camps, lost his entire family in the concentration camp, his parents, his wife, his brother were all died in different camps than he was in. Frankl survived the war, but after the war, Frankl recounts this experience that he had in the camp. This is something that actually happened to him. One day, when he was still in the camp, he collapsed on the ground, weak and sick from hunger. A guard shouted at him to rise, but he was unable to. So the guard began to beat him. And lying there in the mud, being repeatedly beaten and kicked by the SS guard, Frankl found himself. So he's just lying there, but his mind is working. He said he found himself imagining that he wasn't there, but that it was several years later. And he began to imagine that it was after the war. And he was standing at a lectern in Vienna, giving a talk on the psychology of death camps. A lecture in which he imagined describing himself lying on the ground, being beaten, struggling to find the strength to get up. And as he described this to his imaginary future audience, he also imagined standing up and beginning to walk. And then in real life, he started to stand up, and he stood erect, and he walked away from the abusive guard. And our minds do these things. This is like, it's like this long scene that I just described, but our minds do these things, right? You play like this entire scenario in a few fractions of a second in your brain. Anyway, what Nietzsche said was, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's become a cliche, but like all cliches, there's an element of truth to it. When Viktor Frankl got up out of the mud and walked away from the guard beating him, he didn't do it just for himself. He did it because he could imagine a future where he could use that current moment of suffering to help other people in a lecture, in books that he would write. And it was that vision of bringing hope to others to show that no matter what, life is worth living and you can survive far more than you ever thought was possible. And it was that image that allowed him to get up and move on. That's not wishful thinking, it's not magical thinking, it's not the power of positive thinking, but we do need imagination to move forward in life and to get out of the mud. So that's what I got for you today. I'd like you to spend just a few minutes with the people, and it's kind of awkward today with our setup, but turn to the people around you, do a little smoker discussion for a few minutes. What's your strategy for getting out of the mud? When you are in life's valleys, what helps you become more resilient? Share, do the wisdom of the group thing. I think we have a lot to learn from each other. Let's just listen and find out. Maybe we can get some more clues about what entails resilience. How do we find it? How do we build it? What helps you get up out of the mud when you find yourself in the ditch? Discuss amongst yourselves.
I think the subject of resilience and the human spirit is a marvelous, marvelous topic. And you said it very well, Mike.
Oh, here.
When I first moved to Texas, I had a brother and a sister both living here, and they moved away. Okay. But before my brother left, he worked at NASA, and he worked with a man that was in a wheelchair. And he had hooks on both arms. He was a chopper pilot in Vietnam, and the chopper went down, and he survived it. But you ask him what happened, and he said, I had a bad day. And he never had a handicap placard on his van. He had a special wheelchair made where he could push it himself. He didn't have one of the electric ones. I mean, he had the money to do it. And eventually he retired from NASA and sailed solo around the world. Wow. He had a bad day. Anyway, that being said, I didn't know who Jimmy Buffett really was coming from Arizona until I moved out here, and my brother handed me this thing and said, you need to listen to this guy. I said, wow. I said, who is this? And this is a song that kind of fits into that. He went to Paris, looking for answers to questions that bothered him so. He was impressive, young and aggressive, saving the world on his own. But warm summer breezes and French wines and cheeses held his ambitions at bay. The summers and winters scattered like splinters, and 4 or 5 years slipped away. He went to England, played the piano, and married an actress named Kim. They had a fine life. She was a good wife and bore him a young son named Jim. And all of the answers and all of the questions he locked in his attic one day. 'Cause he liked the quiet, clean country living, and 20 more years slipped away. Well, the war took his baby, bombs killed his lady, and left him with only one eye. Whole was shattered, his body was battered, and all he could do is just cry. As tears were falling, he was recalling answers that he never found. So he hopped on a freighter, skid to the ocean, and left England without sound. And now he lives in the islands, fishes the pilings, and he drinks his green label each day. Writing his memoirs, losing his hearing, but he don't care what most people say. Through 86 years of perpetual motion, if he likes you, he'll smile and he'll say, some of it's magic, some of it tragic, but I had a good life all the way. He went to Paris, looking for answers to questions that bothered him so. Thank you so much.
So a couple quick announcements before we head out. Thaddeus, did you bring any CDs or anything?
I don't have any.
Oh, okay. Kim, how can we find where you play around town? What's the best way to do that?
You can Facebook me.
Facebook, okay.
Yeah, Thaddeus Breneman on Facebook. I had a CD, and it only took me 10 years to sell the first 1,000 copies. It's going to go wood pretty soon. I'm real happy about that.